Hello, I'm Dylan,
I'm Kiyan.
and this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where we look into the future and see Matt Smith.
Yes. That.
Our first special episode.
Yes, we finished season 1 last week, so this week we decided to watch the documentary about the making of season 1, An Adventure in Space and Time.
Space. Time. Space.
Time, the final frontier.
No.
No.
I think you mixed that up. So,
Yeah, this
it was a thing.
It was a thing. It came out last year, November
For
2013.
The 50th anniversary of Doctor Who.
Yeah, and it was basically about the making of season 1.
And some sprinklings of season 2 and 3, and then the depressing end of William Hartnell.
Yeah, it was pretty depressing. Made me appreciate William Hartnell more.
He made us feel bad for ratting on him for getting his lines all the time.
Yeah. So, basically, how the documentary started off. Well, first, I just want to say, it was mainly about Verity Lambert, the producer of season 1, and William Hartnell, the first Doctor. And I didn't think it was going to be necessarily just about those two. I thought it was going to be about more of the everyone as a whole and stuff.
Right.
But yes, there's a wasp buzzing around.
No, that's definitely a bee.
A bee, whatever.
Stick with it.
Anyway, as I was saying, I thought it was just going to be more about everyone as a whole, but I really liked how they did it in the end. I really liked it, how it just focused on mainly William Hartnell.
Like
Verity Lambert a little bit.
Docudrama biopic.
Docudrama biopic, yeah. That's what it was.
Yeah, basically.
But it started off with Verity Lambert.
Started out with Sidney Newman.
Yeah.
The Canadian producer who came over from ITV to the BBC.
And they were trying to fill up a time slot between something and something else, right?
Something and something else. That's a terrible description.
Yes, it is, but they were trying to fill a time slot for a one-season show or whatever. So
right.
Sidney Newman wanted to create a science fiction adventure family thing.
Right.
And he was like, "Yo, Verity, get on that."
And Verity didn't want to be involved because she didn't want to be a subordinate, but Sidney wanted her to be
Producer
to produce the show, and she was like, "Oh, that's cool. Okay, sure, I'll do that." So
she had this vision for the show.
yeah. First that brings up the first conflict where the casting crew doesn't believe she's the producer.
Yeah.
So they're not taking her seriously when she tells them what she wants for the Doctor.
Uh-huh.
And so they're looking at all these guys, all old guys. How did they describe the Doctor to William Hartnell? We'll get there, but it was really cool.
Yeah.
So Verity wants William Hartnell. Well, we cut away to the scene where Bill is in his house. You remember?
Yeah.
And
he's talking to his
granddaughter
slash wife. I guess that was his wife, or maybe it was his daughter.
Maybe it was. I don't know. But his granddaughter was there.
Yeah. And he was talking about how he always played sort of the grumpy old major characters like army officials and whatnot. No, William Hartnell was basically describing to his family members how he always plays the grumpy old man character, usually an army guy.
Right.
And how he doesn't necessarily like playing those roles. And so he gets the call from Verity.
To come to a lunch meeting?
Yeah, with her and Waris Hussein, who was the director.
For the first serial. An Unearthly Child. Go
And
back and listen to that podcast.
Well, didn't he direct some other future things too? I think he did.
Possibly. I forgot to open the wiki, so I'll just do that.
Yeah, let's see what he directed.
Waris Hussein. He directed Another Three Child and also 6 of the 7 episodes of Marco Polo.
Yeah. So first, William Hartnell.
We actually skipped right at the beginning where it's like William Hartnell's filming his final scene as the regeneration, and he's at the TARDIS console, and it flashes back to all of this happening.
Yeah, it starts at the depressing end of all of William Hartnell's escapades as the first Doctor. But William Hartnell goes to a meeting with Lambert and Hussein, and at first he's not interested at all in playing the Doctor, and he thinks the premise for the show is just dumb.
But she describes the Doctor as this old crotchety man with a twinkle, like, how'd she say it was like?
It's a cross between.
It was
some two people.
H.G. Wells meets Jules Verne meets Father Christmas.
Yeah.
I don't know if Jules Verne is the only one I'm not sure about there.
Yes, we're doing.
Just
You're not going to find it like this.
We'll see. I'll try find it.
Okay, we're trying to find the exact comparison she made, but that's what basically gets Hartnell on board with the show, because he wants to play this character who's stubborn and just a stereotypical old man, but at the same time has that twinkle and that spark and is a cool guy. So they didn't really go too much into detail about the companions, which I thought they would, as I was saying before.
Right.
But I didn't mind that they didn't, because it was mainly focused on William Hartnell. And if they did focus on other people besides Lambert and Hartnell, it might have just been a little bit disjointed. And
C.S. Lewis meets H.G. Wells meets Father Christmas.
Yeah.
See, I found it.
Uh-huh. In a YouTube comment.
Close enough. Okay, so where are we? So they didn't go into the companions, right? They just kind of showed this. Well, it became like a running thing for every season where they'd take a picture with the Doctor.
Yeah, I actually love those scenes where they had those old cameras with the burnout bulb things. And,
you just see Susan Barbonian. You assume they're Susan Barbonian because, unlike the guy playing William Hartnell, they look basically nothing like.
Yeah, the guy playing William Hartnell looked like William Hartnell, like a lot like William Hartnell.
Yeah.
But the actor playing Jacqueline Hill, Barbara, looked kind of like her, and then Ian and
Susan
just didn't look like them.
Not even.
Yeah.
So they got the companions, they've got the crew, so they're filming. Well, the way Verity convinces Hartnell, she says, they're giving us the best studio, which they're not. They're giving them like Lot D in some sketch studio where if it gets too hot inside, the sprinklers go off.
Yeah.
She's like, oh yeah, the title sequence is going to be amazing. And he's just filming a video screen.
And they cut away to this scene where they're recording the first episode, and everything that could possibly go wrong is going wrong.
The Doctor drops his scarf twice and misses the chair when he throws it. The TARDIS doors just
the doors just start opening, and you see these guys backstage just pulling them closed every time. and the producer / everyone else is just like, oh god, and then the sprinklers go off because it gets too hot.
And they just leave, and they're filming the junkyard scene, and then at the end, William Hartnell he tells Verity he thinks the Doctor's too mean, which he was. We talked about this.
Yeah, we talked about it when we watched the pilot and then the first episode. In the pilot, the Doctor was pretty mean, and then
he didn't have that twinkle, as Hartnell said.
Exactly.
Obviously.
So, I mean, that was probably a giant influence, what Hartnell said to Lambert then. I mean, that basically influenced the Doctor's character for the rest of the show.
Well, I mean, we'll get there, but at the end, there was that 5-minute documentary where the Grendel was like, the Doctor was William Hartnell. Yeah. It wasn't like a character he was playing, it was who he was.
Yeah, and the latter half of the documentary is basically how Hartnell got really attached to the first Doctor.
We should explain some of the scenes. Well, one of my favorite gags was when they were filming the title sequence with the video loop, and they had someone stand in front of it with their face, and it's like, oh no, that looks terrible. But it's funny, because when they got to the second Doctor, they actually added the second Doctor's face to the title sequence. Exactly how they did it there.
So, as they were filming the pilot / first episode, they didn't have the exact set for the TARDIS yet.
Right.
And because the set designers, basically the designers for the show, didn't have any faith in Verity Lambert at all. So how...
Side note, who names their child Verity?
We've been saying this since we watched it. I mean, it's a pretty uncommon name, but like...
I just spelled it wrong. Let's look it up. Verity, a true principle or belief. That's actually interesting.
Yeah.
That it should mean that. So, anyway.
Whoa, that...
Yeah.
Yes. Back to this.
Verity, unisex given name and surname, originally Old French, of Latin origin. Meaning of Verity is truth. Alright, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of it as a name before. Never personally met anyone with the name, but I guess it's pretty uncommon.
Okay, so they don't have faith in Verity.
And she really needs
short forms, Vez or Veza.
Let's just call her Vez for the rest of the... No, let's not do that.
Alright, so they don't believe in Verity.
And she really needs the set to be done for the TARDIS. So she goes to this set designer, and she finds him working on other stuff, and she's like, yo, work on my show.
And he's like, be patient. So she just sits down and is like, okay, I'm being patient.
And I love this. This is how the TARDIS was designed. She was like, okay, you want a TARDIS? Here. And he gets these...
like knickknacks he has on his desk. There's like a spool of thread, bolt.
And these cardboard things with circular pop-outs on them. So he pops out some of the pop-out things, the circular things, and he lines up the 4 walls, and he's like, there, that's the TARDIS.
And he puts the spool of thread in the middle with like a hexagonal bolt, and he's like, there you go, TARDIS. She was like, brilliant.
And that's how the TARDIS was created, and I really like that. I mean, I really like the TARDIS design, and the fact that it came from that makes it so much better.
Yeah, you were saying when we were watching it, like, what if, like, 5 years later when the show got really successful, and he's like, damn, I could have designed something way better than that.
But it all worked out in the end. It has that column in the middle that goes up and down, which was a major plot point in Edge of Destruction.
I still like imagining someone in the console just pushing it up and down.
So after that, things started going well. There's
like a montage where they're filming episodes.
Yeah.
And then there's the first showing of the episode, which, as we mentioned, occurred on the day after Kennedy was assassinated.
Yeah. So they wanted to re-air the first episode before the second episode next week because people were, tuning into the Kennedy assassination
Verity wanted
news.
to give the show a second chance. Also, this is when Verity was... The second script was finished, the Daleks, and she was describing the Daleks to Sydney, and Sydney had like 2 rules for the show. No mutants and no robots, or bug-eyed monsters.
Yeah, described it as bug-eyed monsters.
And the Daleks were both of those.
Yep.
And I don't know, he wasn't sure about it, but he was like, okay. And it became a huge hit.
Well, the way Verity convinced him, or Lambert, I guess we should refer to them by their last names. Vez, yes. The way Vez convinced Sydney Newton was she was describing the Daleks not as just evil robots, but more as like a race that has their own goals and their own needs and stuff. Which, I mean, in the end, they were kind of evil robots, but, I mean, I guess that's how she convinced him, by showing him a different twist on it, I suppose. But they went for it, and...
became super popular.
Yep.
And then there was that scene in the park where Hartnell was with his wife.
Uh-huh.
They were sitting on a bench, and he was trying to memorize his lines.
And this kid walks up, and he's like, hey, Doctor Who, where's the TARDIS going next?
And he said, oh, I don't know. And then the kid wants his autograph, so he gives it to him, and then this entire class is there. Then there's this really cool scene, which made me love William Hartnell, where he's like playing with the kids. He's like, quick kids, let's get to the TARDIS. And they're walking around, he's like, oh no, it's the Daleks. Exterminate, quick, run, I'll hold them off. And they all run away.
Yeah, after watching this, I feel really bad about bagging on Hartnell for the entire season. Like, really bad.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, William Hartnell. But yeah, basically from the montage point onward, there's that montage, and then there's the few scenes showing how William Hartnell got really attached to the First Doctor, and how he loved playing the role.
And we I mean, we recognize some of the because it showed like episodes that were filming. We recognize some of them, like
Yeah,
the Reign of Terror,
Marco Polo,
and
it showed some some scenes where the modern actors were recreating parts of an episode, where they were filming episodes. I thought that was cool because,
yeah,
I don't know. I just thought that was interesting.
So there's a scene. Then there's a scene where Susan is leaving now.
Yeah, Susan.
This is the first blow to Bill.
Yeah, and what I got from the movie was that Carol Ann Ford, Susan's actor, decided to move on and didn't want to be on the show anymore.
Right.
Not that she got kicked off necessarily, because there was William Hartnell talking to her, and he's like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Go? And she's like, "Yeah, I need to move on. I can't be on Doctor Who forever."
And then there was that monologue that the Doctor had, which I'm guessing was talking to Susan after he dropped her off.
Yeah.
Which we're going to get to in 2 weeks. But it was really sad and emotional.
Yeah, because it was the First Doctor talking to Susan.
The first companion to leave. And his granddaughter.
But it was also William Hartnell's sort of monologue to Carol Ann Ford, because he was so devastated that she left. And then soon to follow were Jacqueline Hill and William Russell, which were even further blows to Hartnell because he got so attached to them.
So that monologue was pretty cool, and we'll talk about it in 2 weeks when we actually watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll probably have some things to say.
Yes. And I'll appreciate it more after watching this documentary. And I really liked how, yes, it spoiled some things from season 2 of the show, but I didn't feel that it spoiled much at all, really.
Yeah, I felt like it was a good idea to watch it now.
Yeah.
Because it gave us a new outlook on William Hartnell for when we watched season 2 and 3.
Uh-huh.
I feel like if we had watched at the end of season 3, we wouldn't have got as much out of it. Because now we can look forward and say, okay, looking at it from this perspective, how we know how dedicated William Hartnell was and what he wanted to do with the show.
Yeah, definitely. And we're probably not going to be like, "Dang it, Hartnell, remember your lines" anymore.
We'll do it as a joke, more jokingly now.
Yeah.
As a running gag.
Mm-hmm.
So, it shows us going through season 2, filming, and then they write out William Russell and Jacqueline Hill, Barbara and Ian. And also at the same time, Verity leaves.
Yeah.
Which is a major blow to Hartnell, because she's his best friend in the show. Put in the production stuff.
Uh-huh. And, she created the character that is him, basically, so...
Right.
For her to leave, that was another just devastation to
So, there's a going away party for Verity, and Hartnell goes into the TARDIS, and he's kind of just having a moment there. A sad moment, and Verity comes in and talks to him, and he says something like, "Oh, I'm going to miss you, but, go on and do good things."
Yep. That was a pretty emotional scene.
And then they filming season 3, and this is by far the saddest scene in the show for me, was seeing the new production stuff and how they told William Hartnell to open the door from that side. He said, no, I have to open it from the other side because that's where the switch is.
Yeah,
because seeing how that William Hartnell was so dedicated to remember what each switch did, when they assigned that switch, was really eye-opening. I didn't expect him to be so dedicated as to memorize which switch did what.
Yeah, definitely. And at the same time, Hartnell was also suffering from illness.
Right, which started leading to dementia-like symptoms.
Yeah, and for him to not, there was that one scene where it was long after Warris Hussein had already left, and he was like, "Warris, we need to do this scene again," or whatever. And he was just getting really forgetful, having trouble remembering his lines, and just being forgetful in general. But for him to remember each small detail about the TARDIS and how to work everything showed a lot of dedication on his part, even when his memory was failing.
So they're introducing new companions and things which just appear for a brief moment.
Yeah. Future companions from... was that from season 3, or... season
2 and 3,
something.
somewhere.
We'll meet them soon, I guess.
We'll get there. And so it's coming close to the end of season 3, and Hartnell is having trouble remembering his lines.
And he's basically being tough to work with in the studio. I mean, he knows more about Doctor Who than probably anyone else in the studio.
Yeah, now that everyone's left.
Yeah.
So it's understandable he's being tough to work with. He just wants the show to be good.
Yeah. But I feel like he was holding it to a super high standard, which is a good thing, but at the same time, other people felt that he was being really tough to work with, and
I think they just didn't know what they were getting into when they came into work on Doctor
That's
Who
true.
at that point. That
Yeah.
they didn't know that it was going to be such a thing.
yeah. I mean, I'm not blaming Hartnell at all. I mean,
It's just I would do the same thing. I mean, if I
Yeah.
was super dedicated to something and I got an entirely new staff, I would be pretty hard on them too, because
Yeah.
I want everything to be good.
yeah, of course.
So first there's the scene where the production staff is talking to Sydney, and he says, we need to cut Hartnell. He's just being too hard to work with, and he's not remembering his lines.
And
So
so Sydney, what's his face?
Sydney Newman.
is he
His
calls Hartnell into his office.
Well, Hartnell called the meeting, according to this.
Oh yeah, okay, he did. I don't.
Yeah, and then Sydney was like, yeah, I was meaning to call you in anyway.
Okay, so it was basically them talking about the future of Doctor Who,
Right, and
and
Bill wants a lesser workload. He's like, maybe
Yeah.
you can just write less of my lines and I can just fill in the blank spaces.
yeah, which he probably could have done because he knew the show so well.
Yeah, at that point, he'd be pretty well versed in the show compared to everybody else.
Yeah. And then Sydney Newman breaks the news that Hartnell's not going to be in the show anymore.
Hartnell says you can't have Doctor Who without the Doctor, and Sydney agrees, but then he's like, well, we're replacing you.
Yeah, and I guess that's when they invented the whole regeneration concept.
Yeah, the producer says the show needs to be regenerated, so to speak. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
They didn't... Actually, I was reading, they don't call it the regeneration until the third Doctor to the fourth.
Uh-huh. But, yeah, they replace Hartnell, and
right before the meeting, his granddaughter is talking to William Hartnell, and she says, where's the Doctor going to take the TARDIS next? Because everyone at school is jealous of me because my grandfather's the Doctor.
Uh-huh.
He's going to go forever and ever because the TARDIS is magical. Which just makes, when Sydney breaks the news to him that he's been fired, way worse for the viewer. And then Hartnell goes home to tell his wife that he's not on the show anymore.
Yeah, that was one of the saddest scenes.
And he breaks down crying.
Yep.
And he says, I don't want to go. Which, Kiyan didn't know this, but I don't want to go are the lost words of the 10th Doctor before he regenerates.
Yeah, so
it was...
Nice little reference they did with that. I mean, with the 10th Doctor.
The sad music, and
said.
I was tearing up a bit, actually.
Yeah. You know, the part that I thought was even more sad than that was right after when Hartnell was filming his final scene, and it was just that.
And he's there, and it's just kind of like all silent, all quiet on the Western Front, and he's fiddling with the knobs, and he gets down and turns on the TARDIS for his last time, and he gets up and looks across the console, and there's Matt Smith.
Yeah. 11th Doctor.
And Hartnell smiles. Because I think he came to realize, even though he's leaving, he started something great.
Yeah, that actually happened. Matt Smith time traveled back to the set where they were filming. No. That didn't
Everyone on the set would be like, who are you? I'm from the future. Yes.
He should have come in a TARDIS, and then it'd be like, oh, hey, it's you.
Oh, yeah. Wait, this is actually real, what?
No, but that was probably the saddest scene for me with that.
And Hartnell shakes his successor's hand, Patrick Troughton.
Yeah, and he says, if there's anyone in England fit to be the next Doctor, it's you.
He says, there was only one man in England good enough to replace me.
Yeah.
And Patrick Troughton's like, oh, did they not get him? And everyone laughs. That was kind of... I feel like a joke at that moment probably wasn't the best thing.
Well,
Considering Hartnell was moving on. I know Patrick Troughton probably wasn't thinking about it at the time.
Yeah.
But...
Do you think he even knew what Hartnell was going through? I mean,
probably not.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean... I don't know. And it'll be interesting when we get to the second Doctor.
To see
how he lives
different, if he lives up to the first Doctor. Did they succeed in replacing Hartnell? Or did they replace Hartnell but then epically fail?
Yeah, then there was that mini...
There was like a mini documentary on William Hartnell called William Hartnell, the first. Was it called the first?
I don't know. I don't
Premiere?
remember.
The Uno.
And it was just people who knew Hartnell, who worked on the show, just talking about him. And
or were involved in the show in some way.
Yeah.
Like they had Peter Davison, the fifth Doctor. They had Mark Gatiss, one of the current writers who actually wrote An Adventure in Space and Time.
Uh-huh.
They had Matt Smith, the 11th Doctor. All saying good things about him.
Yeah, and the one that made the biggest impact on me was Hartnell's granddaughter saying that he didn't play the Doctor, he was the Doctor.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you mentioned that before, so that probably...
Yeah.
You probably noticed that too. And also Matt Smith talking about how
much of an impact he had.
Yeah.
And how he created such an amazing show.
Yeah. I mean, he was the basis for everything, really. The first main character on the show. Yeah.
So, I think, like it was said, but I think they needed William Hartnell to go for the show to last this long. I think it was unfortunately something that had to happen. If they had run out the show until William Hartnell died, the show would have just ended there, and there would have been no motivation for them to find someone to replace him.
Well, I don't know about that necessarily, because if they had gone till he died, they could have still, had the whole... Well, they wouldn't have been able to do regeneration, but they could have found another... They actually probably would have done the whole retcon, quote-unquote, thing, where they're like, hey, look, it's the Doctor, and it's not William Hartnell, but they're just like, yo...
Trust us,
yeah.
It's the Doctor. Trust your Doctor.
Which would have been actually worse, so...
Right.
So I kind of agree with you on that respect.
Still not sad to see the first Doctor go, though.
Yeah.
And we're going to be sad when we get there, obviously.
Yeah.
We'll be disappointed. And
yeah, I don't think I'm going to like any of the other Doctors more than the first Doctor. Because...
Yeah. Do you remember when we started this podcast and I said you never forget your first Doctor? And you didn't believe me. You laughed at me.
I'm laughing at you still.
But
I don't know why, but it's okay, yes.
You're never going to forget the first Doctor, because he was your first Doctor.
Yeah, first Doctor. Pretty cool guy.
So I thought this docudrama biopic was pretty well done. It was well written.
It was well done.
Well acted.
And it had modern cinematography compared to what we've been watching lately with the old
It was a good
series.
break.
And the animated episodes, which just had really off-the-wall cinematography. So yeah, I liked it.
So William Russell and Carol Ann Ford both had cameo appearances in this documentary.
But we didn't notice
we didn't notice them. I guess maybe we were too caught up in the story.
Yeah, probably. Yes. Oh,
also, Mark Eden, who plays Marco Polo, also had a role.
Yeah, that was interesting.
I didn't recognize him either, but...
we never saw him move, because that was the reconstruction. That was the first time we saw him
That's true.
actually move, except for that beginning sequence.
That's true.
That was a little interesting.
He was also in the mini documentary that had him talk about William Hartnell, too.
One thing I wanted to say is music for this documentary, I noticed a lot more, because it sounded more like, and I don't know if this is true of the reboot, but it sounded like, generic movie score, stuff playing in the background that added to the scene, but yeah. And I guess that just goes along, I'm not saying it was bad, but I guess that just goes along with, the evolution of TV and movie scores and stuff.
Well, for the reboot, is it Michael Arnold? It's not Michael Arnold. He does Sherlock. I can't remember the name. Actually, it's in this other tab. Writes original music for all
I know.
Murray Gold.
Yeah, you showed me I listened to one of the songs that you showed me from the reboot, which was really good. But
Right.
yeah, just wanted to point that out.
I think they made music a bigger part of the reboot than it was in the original. Probably because they have easier access and it's cheaper to make original music now compared to 1963.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There was an interesting transition method in this docudrama where they had like the year-ometer on the TARDIS.
Oh yeah, that was pretty cool.
That would flip to whatever year they were showing. So it started at 1963 and then it flipped to 64 when they got to the end of season 1, beginning of season 2, and it flipped to 65.
Yeah, that's basically it about this.
The intro was pretty interesting. It had like original music that was kind of interesting. That I'll try put at the beginning of this podcast, but maybe that will happen. Maybe that won't happen.
We'll see. We will see.
I guess you should wrap it up then.
Yes.
I feel like there was something else I wanted to say, but I don't remember what it was.
We can create another...
Oh yeah, we wanted to mention that there's a couple, obviously, differences with documented history of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Some of them are
there are a lot of differences.
There's
we'll
obviously
try
a lot
to read
of They took, obviously, some liberties with it. I mean, some of the more interesting ones are like, the Daleks don't actually say exterminate in the Daleks. So when Hartnell is running around in the park and saying exterminate, it doesn't happen yet.
But for the purposes of the documentary,
it made sense.
Yeah. And let's see, there are some other good ones. There's a lot of differences, but there are only a few really interesting ones.
It mentions that Hartnell's inability to remember Chesterton is used to illustrate his fading health, but most of those errors were scripted as a running joke for the character.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
And I think, didn't we mention, when we heard him say, like, Chesterfield, say, wouldn't it be funny if he just kept mispronouncing his name?
Guess they did it. Guess they just went with it. And for some reason on the wiki, they felt it, pertinent to point out that Matt Smith's cameo never actually happened, as if you wouldn't know already. So I'm like, okay, good job, wiki, good job. Yes.
Some background on the documentary. Mark Gatiss had been trying to actually get it made since the 40th anniversary, which would be 10 years ago, it'd be 2003.
Uh-huh.
But the BBC didn't want to fund it because the reboot hadn't happened at that time.
Yeah.
Obviously. But once
and
the
now
reboot
that it's
had
huge
happened,
again.
Yeah, they figured why not? 50th anniversary.
Well, I'm glad they did.
Centennial.
I'm glad they did, because the guy who played William Hartnell probably wouldn't have looked as much like William Hartnell 10 years ago.
They probably would have found someone else 10 years ago.
I guess.
The script was probably different 10 years ago, since they wouldn't have had like a Matt Smith cameo that they could have done.
Yeah, that would have really detracted from that.
What would they have done? Paul McGann, 8th Doctor, one TV movie?
Probably not. They probably wouldn't have even had it at all.
Paul McGann loves being the Doctor. He's so chill.
That actually sucks then for him. Because, he wasn't really the Doctor for that long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's why he was pretty willing to come back and do like a cameo for the 50th anniversary to lead into the big 50th anniversary story, The Day of the Doctor.
Uh-huh.
There's like actors who love playing the Doctor and actors who don't. Like Christopher Eccleston, who only did one season of the reboot, left because he didn't want to be typecast as the Doctor.
Oh.
And that in addition to the fact that he claims creative differences with the production staff.
Well, that makes sense.
So he didn't come back for the 50th anniversary. I know Stephen Moffat wanted him to come back, but he didn't want to.
Yeah.
So they wrote in a new Doctor.
Uh-huh.
Like, Tom Baker liked being the Doctor, but he's trying to get away from it now. Obviously, he was the Doctor for 7 years. Can't really blame him for that. But and then there's William Hartnell, who just breaks down when he gets fired.
Yeah. Well, I mean, actors who play the Doctor now basically know that they're not going to be the Doctor forever, so
right.
They're not going to get as emotionally attached as Hartnell was.
Some were saying Matt Smith might go on to be the longest running Doctor back when he started, saying he was going to go for more than the 4th. But I know Matt Smith left of his own accord after 3 seasons.
Uh-huh.
basically thought the 11th Doctor's story was done. There was nothing more to be told for him. I think it was the same with Tennant. I think he felt that that Doctor story had been told.
Uh-huh. But the thing that I guess we're both going to see, evolve as we keep watching the series, is the Doctor originally started as, like, as Verity Lambert described, the cranky old man with a twinkle in his eye, right? But the modern Doctors aren't old men, and they're... So, I mean, that's a big difference, I'd imagine.
There's a fan theory, which I think is pretty interesting, and I think could possibly be true, that every Doctor has some sort of character flaw that he has to overcome before he regenerates. Like, the first Doctor's character flaw is that he's a cranky old man.
Yeah.
Which is why he's been becoming more loving.
Yeah, and we saw that, obviously. We've been seeing
I didn't read the theory for any of the 2nd through 7th Doctors because I didn't want to spoil it for myself. But I did read about the 10th and the 11th Doctor in the theory, and both of them made sense, saying how the 11th Doctor was super impatient, right? And he was like, he couldn't go 5 seconds without moving.
Yeah.
And he was always thinking. And when he regenerates... I haven't watched the regeneration story, so I can't speak for certain, but I know it involves waiting for 200 years somewhere.
Oh.
And the 10th Doctor was super vain. He, like, loved himself, and he didn't want to die. So to overcome that, he had to sacrifice himself for someone else.
That's interesting, whether that was intentional or not. Probably was after a certain point. Maybe not with the couple first Doctors, but after that probably was. But that's an interesting thing. That's, an interesting concept.
And some other people say that the Doctor gets younger because he knows he's getting closer and closer to his final regeneration, so he wants to look younger so he'll have a younger body. But I don't subscribe to that theory since Matt Smith just regenerated into Peter Capaldi, who's old enough to be his father.
Yes.
It also doesn't make sense because Peter Davison regenerated into Colin Baker, and Colin Baker was older than Peter Davison. And Sylvester McCoy was older than Colin Baker, I think. Not sure on that one. We should wrap it up then.
Yeah. Next week...
Planet of the Giants.
Yeah, we're going to jump into Season 2.
Exciting.
Which the companions will be written out of during some point in
Season 2. Which is sad. It'll be sad to see Susan, Barbara, and Ian go.
It'll be more sad now that we've watched An Adventure in Space and Time.
The thing about Susan, Ian, and Barbara, compared to, like, other long-running companions, like with the 11th Doctor, there's Amy and Rory, who they kept on for 2.5 seasons, was I felt for Amy and Rory, they just kept them on too long. The story for Amy and Rory was done like halfway through their 2nd season, and I felt they could have written them out then. And I just got sick and tired of them, and I absolutely basically hate their characters now. So, in a way, I'm almost glad they're writing out Susan, Ian, and Barbara, because I feel like they'll probably wrap up their stories in this season, and then write them out immediately, instead of like dragging them out to the point where they just ruin any of the magic of the characters.
Well, that makes sense, but, and since you've watched more of the modern series, do you think that they should, or have they, or do you think that they should, like, write out the companions at the same time that they regenerate the Doctor? Because I feel like that would make a lot of sense.
It would make a lot of sense, and I think there are regeneration stories where the same companion stays with the Doctor, and that is used to demonstrate the Doctor's differences. Like, I know the 9th Doctor's companion, Rose Tyler, was also the 10th Doctor's first companion. So she was there for 2 seasons. And I think they use that as a segue, there's that word again, to demonstrate the difference between the 10th Doctor and the 9th Doctor. So I feel like there are certain companions where writing them out makes sense. Like Susan, obviously, you'd write her out before or during Hartnell's regeneration.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't make sense for her to carry on. Same with Barbara and Ian. But there can be companions where maybe they've just met the Doctor and they haven't been with him for long, and then the Doctor will regenerate, and then they'll become, like, attached to this Doctor. You know what I mean? Like, I know Clara Oswald, the 11th Doctor's final companion, is still the companion of the 12th Doctor for what episodes they're filming now-ish. And I think other characters, or then maybe they don't write them out because they have some specific association with the Doctor. Like, I don't know the overarching story of Season 1 of the reboot.
Yes. Which
involves Rose Tyler in some way, that she's integral to the fate of the universe. which is I think why they keep her with the 10th Doctor, because she had some like major association with the Doctor, and I think that's also why they're keeping Clara Oswald. I don't know too much about her, but I know she's definitely the impossible girl, the Doctor describes himself. We've seen 3 different incarnations of Clara Oswald already, so I'd like to see that explained, and I think that's why they're keeping her with the 12th.
Okay.
So maybe there's companions who have some major like thing with the Doctor that they have to stay with the Doctor.
All right.
But
Sounds good to me.
Don't actually think they write out the companions right with the regeneration ever. I think they write them out like maybe in the next story or the story before.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll definitely see as we continue to watch.
We'll wrap it up.
Yes.
Didn't get any emails this week.
But we
Again.
should this week.
You should email us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com.
Comments?
Questions,
Questions?
concerns, angry rants, love letters, fan mail, hate mail.
We don't mind. Just
Email
do it.
us so we can mention it on the show.
And you'll be rich and famous beyond your wildest dreams. No.
The budget for the show is like $10.
Yes.
No, I think our hosting costs $15 a month.
Yes.
Okay, so
Next week,
Planet of the Giants.
Season 2.
We're gonna be moving pretty quickly. I think I was calculating in my head the other day. We'll finish around somewhere. Okay.
Yes, we'll finish around somewhere. The end.